We are, of course, just days away from the inauguration, and allies and adversaries alike are feeling the weight of Trump's aggressive global pressure campaign. Trump has repeatedly vowed to impose 25% tariffs on Canada, a U.S. ally and neighbor, on his first day in office, claiming he would use, quote, economic force even to annex Canada, doubling down on his vow to make it the 51st state. I can tell you that's not going to happen. Following Prime Minister Trudeau's resignation, our neighbor to the north faces a critical political transition of its own, with the Liberal Party leadership vote to come on March 9th, and with that uncertainty about the country's economic path forward in the face of those Trump tariff threats. Canada's Foreign Minister, Mélanie Joly, is in Washington now to meet with key policymakers, and she joins me now. Thanks so much, Foreign Minister, for taking the time.
It's a pleasure to see you again and to be here with you.
So you're here in Washington to meet with lawmakers, including Republicans, to talk about this tariff threat. My first question is this, because sometimes people say, well, Trump, that's bluster. It's a extreme negotiating position, then he moves towards the middle. Do you believe these threats are legitimate?
Well, I think they're not legitimate, but I think we have to take them seriously. Canada's the best friend to the United States. We're the biggest trading partner. We're a really good ally. And we want to engage. We want this to be a win-win. And we know that the Trump administration wants to make sure that America, Canada, and the US together are this energy superpower, and we can be that together. But at the same time, we need to make sure that things are straight, that we know exactly what to expect. President Trump, in his tweet back in December, said that he had concern about the northern border. And you know what? We've taken seriously what he said, and we think it's a win-win. We think we need to secure a border. Americans, and you guys have a fentanyl crisis, we do too, and we need to save lives together. So we came up with this really strong border plan, Jim. $1 billion worth of support, and it means more boots on the ground. It means also more drones, Black Hawk helicopters, technology, cameras. We need to make sure ultimately that the border is secure.
Okay.
And we've done that. Tom Homan, the new border czar, even said publicly in different interviews that he thought that that was a good border plan. And so based on that, we believe that there should not be any tariffs.
Okay, so potential progress on the border issue. On the tariff issue, I noted Prime Minister Trudeau's comments yesterday regarding the threat of retaliation. And he said, he says, they will respond purposefully, forcefully, and resolutely. Canada would. What kind of retaliation are we talking about?
Well, first, we don't want tariffs. We don't want any trade war. We're seeking peace. We're pleading for peace, because I think that we need to be stronger together to deal with the threat coming from other adversaries. And we need to, make sure that if America wants to go toe-to-toe with China, we can be a very strong ally. So let's not distract ourselves by, ultimately fighting ourselves.
Canada's a Pacific nation as well, of course.
We are a Pacific nation. We're part of NATO. Anyways, we have so many things in common. We're the best neighbor you can ever have. Now, at the same time, if Trump is going ahead with tariffs, he's starting a trade war. And of course we will retaliate. And you know what will happen for all those watching us right now? This will be a Trump tariff tax on Americans, because this will have an impact on jobs in many, many states. 35 states have Canada as the main export market. And at the same time, we know that we can do a lot to make sure that ultimately at the grocery store, at the pump, when it comes to heating costs, we can try to make sure that things are not as costly. But if we have 25% tariffs against us, of course we will retaliate, and of course that will translate into a tax on Americans.
Can you describe in any greater detail exactly how Canada would retaliate?
Listen, we still want to make sure that we get to a deal without any tariffs. We think we can get there. We have the USMCA, which was, according to President Trump himself, the best deal ever signed by the American administration. We believe it was a win-win. We believe that we're able to create jobs together. And we know that we have to continue to fight inflation. At the same time, we will continue to make sure that we fight back if there's a threat, and everything is on the table.
Incoming President Trump will often talk about the trade deficit that the U.S. has with Canada. A big portion of that is the U.S. buys a lot of oil from Canada, and you will hear from Canadian officials that they say Canada actually sells oil to the U.S. at a discount. We heard that from former Prime Minister Stephen Harper recently. Can you explain how exactly?
Well, because we know that a lot of the refineries in Texas depend on Canadian oil. If it's not Canadian oil, it's Venezuela. So if it's not Canadian potash, it is actually from Russia. If it's not our uranium for our nuclear, for your nuclear, centers and that are providing home heating, it's Russia. So we can make sure that ultimately we do more together. That's why I was referring to an energy powerhouse. But if there is indeed a $40 billion more of a trade surplus, it's because Americans are buying much more of our energy. And indeed, we're selling it at a discount. If you get rid of energy, if you look at only goods, actually the Americans, so the US has a trade surplus of $50 billion with Canada. So I really think that when we don't want a trade war, it's a lose-lose situation. Jobs would be lost in America. It would be costing more, like I was saying, at the pump to Americans. And at a time where ultimately what Trump has been saying, what President-elect Trump has been saying, is he wants to make sure that lives are more affordable here in your wonderful country, and we can help you to do that.
Listen, he ran on inflation effectively. I want to ask you before we go about Trump's repeated proposal, if you want to call it that Canada become the 51st state. Now, I know that's not going to happen. I've lived in Canada myself, and I know that polls show that the vast majority of Canadians have no interest in that. But let me ask you, as a native Canadian and the foreign minister representing the country, what's your response to that offer from the incoming U.S. president?
We can be the best ally. We will never become a state, and we will never be a colony.
That's a straightforward answer.
Indeed.
Prime Minister Joly, Foreign Minister Joly. Oh, I do want to ask you before we go, because you were for a time considered a possibility to take over the leadership of the Liberal Party, which would have put you on the path to being Prime Minister. You took your name out of the running. Can you tell us why?
Well, I think that right now Canadians are facing an existential threat. You know, when it comes to tariffs from President-elect Trump. Sorry. I had to ask myself two questions. The first one, can I be the first woman leading the Liberal Party of Canada and therefore become Prime Minister? I said yes. But can I leave my responsibilities of being the Foreign Minister at a crucial time in our relationship between the US and Canada? No. And I can't do both. So I decided to choose my country first, and that's exactly why I'm in Washington, and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to Americans watching us.
Well, I imagine you'll be quite busy. Foreign Minister Joly, thanks so very much for joining us. I understand it on your birthday as well.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.